Welcome, Velociraptors. Today we will be reviewing the nuts and bolts of completing a woody plants project in planet Earth. Before I get started, feel free to download this presentation to take notes on. You may also want to reference your organism handout, which is located in the resources module on Blend. Let's get started. As a woody plant group, you're going to need some supplies. First, you'll want to ensure that you have reviewed the project packet and completed your notebook formatting for the field. You will also need a field guide and key, which you will use to identify the specimen you collect and photograph in the field. This leads to your last supply, a mobile camera. You will be collecting the specimens and photographing them for iNaturalist. You will need to be able to take a quality image of your organism. To do this, you'll need something that you can take images with. A mobile phone is perfect, but any camera will work. Now that we have the necessary supplies, you'll need to determine where you are going to study. Each individual needs to select 3 different parks to study. Start by first looking at the list provided in the Introduction to the Project presentation, which can be found in the Resources module in Blend. This means that, as a group of 2, you will have 6 different parks in total. If you're a group of 3, then that would be a total of 9 different parks. If you would like to propose a park that is not on the list, please reach out as soon as possible so that we can determine if the chosen park is feasible for the project. Each student is responsible for their own 3 parks. This is one of the individual grading components of the project. As you are choosing your parks to study, you are going to want to take into account proximity and accessibility. You are going to want to think about what you would like to study. You need to be thinking about what physical variables might be feasible to study in relation to your study locations. You might choose water availability, such as the park's access to water. It might have no access or border the Colorado River. You could also choose geology. You could study the impact of different soil types or rock units and their impact on abundance. You might also investigate urbanization. This might be how far it is on average from urbanization, or it might be just the distance from downtown. If those aren't working for your chosen study sites, you could investigate elevation by analyzing the parks based on their average elevation. You will need to review your group's parks to determine which variable is more feasible. For instance, if you choose elevation, it might look something like this. Each individual is responsible for a park, with a high average elevation, medium average elevation, and a low average elevation. This ensures that there is no biases associated with data collection. For instance, if the orange researcher was not the best and collected all the data at high elevation, then it might appear that a correlation existed that was just an error on the researcher's part. Of course, this is an ideal situation. This might not be possible given certain limitations. However, try your best to ensure that you limit biases where possible. We've covered the details of the study, but what about the organism? What actually is a woody plant? A woody plant is primarily a tree, shrub, or vine. We are looking for organisms that exhibit that hard secondary vascular tissue, which we typically think of as bark. Let's see if we can identify some woody plants. Our first example here is giant reed. It is an invasive or non-native species. It does have a hard exterior, however, as you can see from the cross-section, that it doesn't really have bark or that secondary xylem. This is not a woody plant. The second example we have here is plateau live oak, a common tree around Austin. You can see from the cross-section that it has a true secondary xylem and bark. This is a woody plant. Prickly pear are sometimes counted as woody plants, even though they do not exhibit that typical woody structure like plateau live oak. For this study, please avoid these. Don't collect them. Students usually forget about the vine. This is the Mustang grape, a vine that you might see around Austin. This is a woody plant. This is another example of a woody plant. As you travel to your parks, be sure that you are collecting only woody plants. They must exhibit this hard vascular tissue. You will also want to take note of key characteristics. This involves an understanding of leaf types and arrangements. Leaves are arranged on a stem in 3 different arrangements. Alternate, where the petioles of the leaves meet the stem at alternating points. The petiole is that fleshy part that connects the stem to the leaf. They might be oppositely arranged, meaning directly across from each other. Or whorled. This is when there are several leaves meeting at the stem at the same location. However, how do we tell what is the leaf? There are actually different types of leaves. The first type, which we saw in the previous illustration, is a simple leaf. You see that there is a single leaf blade attached to a petiole that is meeting at the axillary bud. This is a compound leaf. You can see that the petiole coming out from the auxiliary bud branches off into leaflets. The entire orange piece would be considered the leaf. The auxiliary bud is your key to figuring out whether you are looking at a leaflet or a leaf. You can see there is no bud next to the leaflets. The other type is doubly compound. This is when the leaflets themselves are also branched, as you can see in the illustration. This is why it is imperative that you take several images of the plant to ensure that you do not capture a leaflet, but an entire leaf. Otherwise, you will get the leaf arrangement wrong and be unable to identify the plant. The compound leaf is subdivided into the arrangements of its leaflets. They can be classified as either palmate, trifoliate, or pinnate. For example, can you tell what type of leaf is present? There are actually two different species in this image. They both are compound and trifoliate. However, we are using this example to show you how easily two species can be mistaken as one. This can be dangerous because one of these species is poison ivy. The other is harmless box elder. They look very similar. However, you can tell them apart. To tell the difference, you have to look at the actual leaf arrangement. Remember, to find that auxiliary bud to help find the leaf. Poison ivy has an alternate leaf arrangement, as you can see in this image. However, box elder does not exhibit that arrangement. It is opposite. This helps you to identify which is which in the field. We don't want you to accidentally touch it in the field, so stay clear of it. Thus, if you see a trifoliate leaf, make sure to avoid it initially before checking the arrangement. There are few common ornamental non-native species that you might come into contact with that will not necessarily be found in the field guides provided. Heavenly bamboo is an example of a doubly compound trifoliate leaf, and is definitely a common species that students usually find in the parks in Austin. You might also see some Chinese Betonia on your adventure to your parks. Now it's time to collect data. For this project, you will collect a majority of your data through the process of data mining. This means that you will not actually be collecting or analyzing the specimen yourself, but using already collected data. You will collect two specimens at each park that will count as a ground truth. This supports your data mining by providing a true specimen present in the park. These specimens will then be uploaded to iNaturalist so that you too can contribute to the community that we're using for the project. Together, we consider this an entire data set, which you will complete 3 times during the semester. Let's dive a little deeper. The data you will be collecting is from iNaturalist. This is a citizen science database. It has been collected by and identified by members of the community. This creates a unique environment for you to interact and contribute to the community. To get started, you will first need to create an account. Go to iNaturalist.org and create an account. You can use the sign in with Google if you would like to link it to your Austin ISD account. Once you have created your account, you should see a search bar in the upper left-hand corner. Please search for GAMP Biodiversity. Then click Projects at the top to filter your results. Click the project that corresponds to your particular class section. Then click Join to join. This will add you to my group so that I can quickly access your post to iNaturalist. Be sure to use a username that I can easily identify. If you are not comfortable using an identifiable username, please send me a message via the Blend inbox to provide me with your username. For each data collection, you will need to create a Google Sheet, just like this. You can keep all your data sets in a single document, but make sure that they are on different sheets. This helps me quickly assess your work. You will be recording the species name, number of individuals, which is the same as the number of observations, and calculating the relative density. To do this, you will click Explore and navigate to your particular park. You will then record all the woody plant species that were observed in the park. Note that iNaturalist does not sort plants this way, thus you will need to identify them on your own as either woody or not woody. As you can see, this can be quite a large population, 400 for this example. Don't worry about all the steps though. There will be another video explaining all the details when you complete your first data set. You will need to calculate the relative density for each species. This is done by taking the total observations of a particular species divided by the total number of observations for the park times 100. This will be relatively easy using Google Sheets equations, but more on that later. In addition to mining other individuals' data, you will be collecting some of your own. These will be your ground truth points. You will collect 2 ground truth points from each park. This will be completed along with your data set. You will also need to take stellar images that will be used to post your specimen to iNaturalist. This should not be 3 identical images. Make sure to take at least 3 images of your organism, one of the leaf, one of several leaves. Ensure that you include where the leaves connect to the branch, and one of the full plant. This should capture the plant from different angles. I know this might be hard, but I just ask you to try your best. The higher quality images you take, the easier it will be to identify. You will also record this in your notebook. You will record the species. If you don't know what it is, you can write unknown A for now, plus the date and location. Ensure that you provide a detailed location that includes the latitude and longitude coordinates. Lastly, provide some identifying information such as leaf type, leaf arrangement, bark description, flowers, fruit, or if it is a tree, shrub, or vine. These will all help you to classify your woody plant using the dichotomous key or the online field guides. The more details, the better. Well done, Velociraptors. You've almost completed the Woody Plants workshop. Use the skills that we've learned here and the resources provided to complete the following practice identifications. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for tuning in.